It's afternoon. Yes, it is afternoon here on 97.5 The Fanatic and NBC Sports Philadelphia. Best show ever, 610-632-0975. It will be an interesting day today, so let's get right to our opening statements. Yes, and we start with the word of the day, and the word of the day today is mess. Mess, because the game last night was a whole mess by the Eagles. They did basically nothing well and a ton of things bad as they go from 8-0 to 8-1 to the stinking Commanders. Now, I'm going to say right now, I give Washington absolutely zero credit for what they did yesterday. I put 100% of what happened on the Eagles and the Eagles alone. And there are many, many, many culprits in a game like that where you're way better than a team at home, Monday Night Football, 11-point favorites, and you manage to lose. It's because this has been a theme. This is going to be a lot of games the rest of the way for the Eagles. The only way for them to lose is to make mistakes or be a whole mess like they were last night. Now, I want to make it clear also right at the top that I'm not concerned about the season. I still think they're the best team in the NFC. I'm not panicked in any way, shape, or form, but we're talking about last night, and that was a mess. A.J. Brown decided to not show up. Yes, he's been very good the first 8 games. Yesterday, he decided to just be a no-show. Why he decided not to show up to work, you have to ask A.J. Brown. He didn't really address it after the game other than with smiles and happiness, which I don't really mind, but he didn't address why he was a no-show yesterday. Darius Slay, been the best corner arguably in all of football through the first 8 games. He also didn't show up yesterday at all. At all. Just decided not to show up. McLaurin did whatever he wanted to him, and he didn't respond, especially in the first half. He wasn't ready to play for whatever reason. Great for 8 games, bad for 1. But Jonathan Gannon is the person who we got to really zoom in on, because this is the weird part. What Washington did last night was the exact same thing. Exactly. No variances, nothing different than both the Texans and the Steelers both tried to do when the Eagles blew them out. And that was run, with not great effectiveness, by the way, and then have third and manageable because this guy's not going to force the issue. Now, Gannon going into the game, they were 4th ranked, they had good stats, and he had, other than week 1, he had not been bad. Between the 2nd through the 8th game, he did a good job as defensive coordinator. But last night, he was terrible. He was flat terrible because he can't make basic adjustments to basic things because he believes in his scheme more than he believes in reality. We all need self-confidence in this world, but Gannon was a mess last night because you knew what they were going to do. So if you know for a fact that a team wants to run, and that's what they want to do. And they only average 3.1 yards a carry, which I'll sign for every single day. I'll tell you this right now. If the Eagles the rest of the way hold teams to 3 yards per carry, as long as Gannon shows up to do his job, they will literally win the Super Bowl because that's not going to get it done unless Gannon decides to not use his brain like he didn't use last night. There weren't extra men in the box. There was no run blitzing. There was nothing. He was just there. And then behind that, the pass defense was poor partially because Slay decided not to show up. Bradbury did a better job than Slay, but also soft coverage behind it. He's worried about both the big play. Meanwhile, this is a team basically incapable of big plays. Their longest run was 11 yards. I know that Troy Aikman, who was awful last night, too, just a whole mess. He doesn't usually do this. He was rooting for someone he knew. He wasn't rooting against the Eagles. So I guess one of his friends, like sons on Washington, so he was just rooting. He did a terrible job. So they were saying, oh, look how great the run is. No, look how bad Gannon was doing. The Eagles have to look in the mirror and recognize that they lost that game because of them. Not because Washington's good, because they're not. Not because Washington played particularly well, because they didn't. But because they were a mess. And the last one before we move on, Quez Watkins. You don't make enough plays to make that kind of mistake. I know people say, oh, it's just one play. Oh, yeah? What was the last positive play like that Quez Watkins did? Like A.J. Brown, we said he had 8 good games. He had 1 bad game. Slay had 8 good games. He had 1 bad game. When was the last time Quez Watkins made a good play? Period. That's why he can't make that mistake. And I think that That's just a killer situation. That game was a mess from the moment they got up 14-7. The Eagles should be ashamed of that one performance, but last night can't happen again.
Without Jordan Davis and without Avonte Maddox, even without those two, it is ridiculous to look at some of those sustained drives that Jonathan Gannon allowed Washington to go. 7 minutes and 21 seconds, 7 minutes and 4 seconds, 8 minutes and 23 seconds. These are 14-play drives, 16-play drives. It just cannot happen. Now your offense, Jalen Hurts, is sitting on the sidelines with his helmet waiting to get into the game. I mean, it really does ruin your rhythm. There's so much that this offense can do, but when you're waiting forever to get back on the field, Taylor Heineke, say what you will about it, but if you're going to give him that much time and space, Fletcher Cox was miserable. Fletcher Cox, was he playing? Was he there? That offensive line or defensive line was non-existent. They got no pressure on the quarterback. My point is, though, guys like Taylor Heineke on 3rd and long, if guys are going to be wide open over the middle, he's good enough to make that play and have a pitch and catch where they're going to get a huge chunk of yards. The chains are going to move, and now you're backing up again. It's just pathetic how it all played out. And obviously they're 8-1. So they're not a disgusting football team. They're not an egregious football team. But it was a bad game. And I'm frustrated with what I saw because even with everything that played out, I still thought they should have won because Quez Watkins had it. That place deflated. You could feel it from your living room as soon as he got back up, which I'm okay with him getting back up because he wasn't touched. Even if he got 8 yards, 9 yards more, that's extremely important to the game. But you got to be aware that guys are chasing you down and they're going to try and wrap you up and tackle you. And he's just very lackadaisical with the football. You got to be more prepared. And we knew that there was going to be so much emphasis on Devontae and A.J. Brown when we were talking about what this team was going to be offensively, to the point where Quez was going to have timely home run hits. Well, that was his time. It's not Deshaun Jackson, but there's going to be times periodically where his number is called, guys fall asleep, and he's wide open. You got to maximize those chances. And he just let it slip right through his hands. Jonathan Gannon should have the target today with a lot of criticism. But Nick Sirianni, I mean, the decision, I thought, to punt the ball, even with a couple of timeouts left, go for it. You got to go for it there. I thought they let one slip, even in a game where they probably shouldn't have won. They should have squeezed out of it, and they didn't.
I think it comes down to simple mistakes. I mean, the fumbles, obviously the Goddard one, there should have been a face mask on that. There's no doubt about it. But simple mistakes. The Quez Watkins fumble, that's uncalled for. You have to hold on to the football in that situation. You look at the defense. Okay, you gave up the yardage rushing. Wasn't pretty, but, I mean, this is not the best rushing team you're going to see. I think that's the thing that stands out to me. The other thing is, how do you let Heineke pick up 12 third down conversions? That Washington team picked up 12 third down conversions. That, to me, is playing soft defense. That's not attacking the offense. I thought this lies completely on Jonathan Gannon. Your offense was not out there long enough. You think about this for a second. You're a quarterback. You go out there, you score an early touchdown. All of a sudden, you're barely out there the rest of the half. I mean, that to me is an issue in itself. And that to me is saying our defense is not attacking Washington's offense. Instead, you let them dictate play, and say what you will about Heineke. He made some good passes to areas. I'm not going to even say he was passing to guys. He threw the ball to areas that he knew was open on that Eagles defense. I just think all the way around this team made way too many mistakes to start with. Like I said, the turnovers are big-time mistakes. Quez Watkins holds on to that ball. The Eagles probably win the ball game, and all we're doing is kind of contemplating on what they did wrong in the game instead of losing the ball game. But they had enough opportunities to win this game. I mean, mistakes in a sense that are mental mistakes, hitting the quarterback after he gives himself up by Brandon Graham. He took full responsibility for that. It's just up and down. I don't think it was necessarily one thing, but I think the main factor was the defense. And who do you point your finger at? You point it at Jonathan Gannon, because this reverts back to last year. Can't be that soft against a team like the Commanders.
You're absolutely right about that. And this is what I will say about the referees. They did not cost the Eagles the game. They did not. The Eagles were terrible. That's why they lost. Because Washington's not that good. Miss me with that Taylor Heineke. I'd rather have a literal empty bottle of Heineken be my quarterback than that fraud. But The Eagles' defense was just terrible. But I'll tell you this. Those referees are horrible.
They sucked.
And what we got to stop doing, and I've been saying this, is stop with the excuse of it's hard to be a ref. First of all, that's not true. There are jobs way harder than being a ref that you would not allow to make a mistake. You don't think heart surgery is way hard than being a ref? Now, think about that. Way harder. So just stop with it's so hard to be a... No, it's not. It's not hard to be looking at Goddard getting face masked and to throw the damn flag. This is from NFL. They have got you guys hoodwinked and bamboozled. Being a ref is easier than being a teacher. Being a ref is easier than being a talk show host. Being a ref is easier than being an accountant. Now time to start the Twitter poll with Jen Scordo. Hello, Jen.
Hello there, fellas. Buttons aren't working today. So who is most to blame for the Eagles' loss last night? You can only have 4 answers on a Twitter poll. So here are the 4. The refs, Jonathan Gannon, Quez Watkins, or you can answer Darius Slay / A.J. Brown. Right now, early votes have Jonathan Gannon overwhelmingly winning at 68%.
So everybody watched the same game.
Yeah. So it was weird. Slay and Brown it's just one bad game, but weird spot for them both to be bad in the same game. It's not like one of them was bad one week and then one was bad the next week. They were both bad in the same game, it was also annoying, the loss to go with it. I'm actually more annoyed by the loss than anything else. Like, I'm not shaking it where this team's not good.
I feel the same.
I'm annoyed.
Well, it's on Monday Night Football. It's not thrown in the 1 o'clock on Sunday where there's so much happening that it gets removed from the biggest combos. I mean, it was the only game on, and everyone saw it. But, yeah, A.J. Brown, I can't believe that throw. Imagine if A.J. caught that ball. Not that it was an easy catch, but him, that caliber of wide receiver, can come down with it when it hits the fingertips. Think about the way we describe that throw by Jalen Hurts if he makes it compared to missing it. But it's the same exact throw either way. That was perfect. I mean, you can't throw a ball more perfect than that. I couldn't believe that. He let it go to the other team.
How the hell it gets picked off is beyond me.
Well, the second guy comes in.
No, I understand that. But, I mean, that number one, it's not an easy play either way. But, he normally does catch that football. And, you couldn't put that in a better spot. There's no doubt about it.
No, and his job at that point, if a guy's coming in, is to make sure that ball gets on the ground if he can't catch it. He can't let it get ripped away by somebody else. And Slay has a bad game on the same game, and both of them have been so good. So that added to the annoyance. And here's the first 3 jobs that we're going to say are harder than being an NFL ref, since this is the lazy-ass narrative. Oh, it's a hard job. Shut up. Well, why? Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? This is like the cigarette companies for all those years. The reason people say smoking cigarettes is hard is partially because cigarette companies have put that in their marketing. NFL people like Aikman and Buck and everybody, they tell everybody how hard it is to be a ref, and then they put TV refs on TV. No one that wants to see the refs as it is. No one wants to hear from a TV ref. What a waste of money. There's people starving in this world, and we're paying 6 figures to a damn ref? Are you kidding me?
Think about this for a second. Why do they put those guys on TV?
To agree with the refs all the time.
Or they know somebody's going to blow a call. So they have to have another ref with them.
The only one he said, and the only reason the ref agreed was because Aikman and Buck both said that they blew the one where they called on Gardner Johnson. The only reason, 100% of the time, they just agree with the refs. Like, you look at the Goddard play. Hey, they're just looking at the fumble, the ball's out. Yeah, you loser. But why'd they miss the face mask? Hey, they're just looking at the see ball placement to see these down by contact. Good job by them picking it up. Are you kidding me?
How about Aikman? How about Aikman on the pick play? He was just trying to run his route. In what NFL world is there ever a route right there where they're not trying to separate a wide receiver from the quarterback? Yeah. That is literally a typical pick play that they were trying to run, and it got called. But he tried to somehow act as if it was, he was just trying to run his route. Come on.
Aikman is my favorite of those analysts. I like him more than Romo. I like him more than Collinsworth. I like him more than all of them.
Collinsworth's a word.
He was horrible last night because he had a personal relationship with somebody over there on the side of Washington. Also, since unfortunately he just lost his mother and Rivera just lost his mother, they were able to be kindred spirits. And he was blatantly rooting for Washington last night. Now, all the time, he doesn't hate the Eagles. If Washington had been playing anybody last night, he was going to be rooting for that team. But he was horrible last night. He was horrible. Troy Aikman was the worst at his job that he's ever been, right when the Eagles stink. Why couldn't it be bad in a game that the Eagles win 44-14?
Well, maybe he was one of the days, but we just don't notice because we're excited with the win.
Yeah, he just had a bad night. A lot of people just seem to have a bad night last night at the worst time to have it. Word of the day is mess. Last night's game was just a mess. Now, it was one game. I'm not saying that they're not going to win the Super Bowl now or get to the Super Bowl, anything like that. But I will say it was annoying, and Gannon was always going to be the weak link. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to be the type weak link that keeps him from doing anything, but he was always the weakest. He's the Fredo of that family. And you got to watch Fredo. You know you can't trust Fredo. So that's one thing to watch there. You know, Michael made some mistakes, all right? What he did to Kay was bad in part two. Like, he can't do that at the end of the movie. After Kay told him what happened with his baby, you can't do that. Everybody makes mistakes. But you can't be Fredo. And he's Fredo. And that's the concern. Is Fredo did a couple things. I bet you Michael thought Fredo was doing okay out there in Cuba. He wasn't, but he thought, well, we probably thought Gannon had it figured out. He didn't. He didn't.
Well, we brought this up in game one. In game one, when they I almost said lost just because that's kind of how I remember the feeling after. Mm-hmm. It was devastating to see how he performed. But when they were winning and then the Lions started to creep back, we know deep down what Jonathan Gannon wants to do. Mm-hmm. So when he throws this other stuff over the weeks, it's cute. But we know deep down what he believes in. And what he believes in is the nonsense he showed yesterday night, and at some point, everyone shows their true colors, is my point. So we know what his true colors are. This is it. This is Jonathan Gannon's true colors.
We didn't see a lot of attacking. We didn't see a lot of blitzing. I mean, think about that. You think he was afraid of Heineke just getting out of the pocket? Is that why you're not attacking this guy? You attacked Carson Wentz last time and sacked him 9 times. 9 times. What happened to that scheme? Well, Stick with that until it goes wrong.
No, it was the same scheme.
There's no way. They didn't have any pressure on Heineke.
That's because their offensive line is better than it was. They got some guys back. When we talked to watch this guy last week, Finley, he filled us in on all of that. They have a better offensive line than last time, but also Heineke doesn't hold the ball as long as Carson Wentz. They got to him 3 times, but they also ran how many times?
Yeah, but
the issue for me was that they didn't attack because he doesn't believe in attack.
See, but if you attack, he might just throw the ball up in the air. I mean, that was my thought process on this.
He might, but he doesn't believe in attacking. He doesn't believe
He'll
in
drop some guys into coverage, so that shouldn't be in coverage.
He dropped them into coverage, but there was a big hole in the center. How many times was the ball thrown over the linebackers and just into that 10-yard space that was open the whole time? He wasn't throwing to receivers. He was throwing to a spot that was open.
But that's what Gannon does. That's Gannon's system.
Well, didn't work very well.
That's what he does. That's what he does. Greg in Bethlehem, you're on 97.5 The Fanatic. Hello, Greg.
Hey, guys. Pretty messy game last night. You got to score more points in this league to win routinely, but I thought most of the blame should go on the defensive side. The pass rush was so-so. But the defensive coverage was terrible. I mean, generally speaking, Heineke was getting rid of the ball pretty quickly, and in that case, you got to have tighter coverage. And I thought at halftime he was going to adjust and make that adjustment, and Gannon never did.
He made the adjustment in the pass game. He didn't make any adjustments in the run game. They didn't give up the same amount. McLaurin didn't have nearly as good a second half as he did a first half. They made adjustments in the pass game only. He made no changes in the run defense. Also, it's hard to score if you don't have the ball.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you give the other team 8 or 9 minute drives, you're putting your offense at a disadvantage. I mean, I didn't realize. I guess I should have how much they missed Jordan Davis in the middle, but
gave up 3.1 yards per carry.
Yeah,
which is exactly what they did last night.
Yeah, it was 3.1. They gave up 3.1 yards per carry. I know that the announcers kept talking about Jordan Davis. The issue was on third down, they didn't get any plays for negative plays. The way Gannon thinks is sooner or later it's going to be an offsides, a holding, some sort of mistake so that they're behind the sticks so that they can't just do that. He doesn't make those things happen, though. He just hopes that they happen. They didn't happen. I'm telling you again, I will sign up for teams averaging 3.1 yards a carry every game for the rest of the year, and the Eagles will do just fine if Gannon just recognizes that sometimes you have to do something to make them go offside. Maybe you do some sort of stunt out front to maybe get a false start so it's 1st and 15 or 2nd and 9 instead of or 2nd and 12 rather than, okay, 1st down they got 3. 2nd down, they got 3. Okay, it's 2nd and 4. We can go either way. Up, it's 4th and 1. Let's go for it on 4th and 1. He didn't do anything to take them off of schedule. That was the issue. The 3.1 yards a carry, I don't care if it's Jordan Davis. I don't care if it's Vernon Davis. I don't care if it's Miles Davis. Eddie Davis. If you hold a team to 3.1 yards per damn carry, you need to find a way to win the game and get them off the field. And Gannon's got no ideas.
You nailed it. You know, I'm just as frustrated with the 3rd down conversions as I am with what they were allowing the Washington Commanders to do to set themselves up for a 3rd and 1. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to stop 3rd and 1s. We see it all the time with Hurts. If it's 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, QBC, go have at it, and it's easy. They just move the chains with will. So it's about you got to set them for 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13. So getting to a 3rd and manageable is that much more difficult, but it was nonstop. Having that short down, 3rd and 1, 3rd and short, at that point, you're playing with fire. Of course they're going to keep moving the chains from there. So that's where I was disappointed with, just as much as the 3rd down conversion was everything prior to that, allowing them to set it up that way.
3rd down conversions were everything. Think about this for a second. Think about the time of possession. Why? Because you gave up all those 3rd down plays. You give up chunks on 3rd down, you're going to be sitting on the field with your defense all night long. Especially in the first half last night, it was awful. I mean, the defense was awful on 3rd down. You got to pressure the quarterback. You got to try something different. He doesn't make adjustments. I think we all know this. I think we said this in game 1. He didn't make any adjustments in the game. Other teams are going to adjust on you. You have to be able to readjust. Jonathan Gannon cannot do that.
He absolutely cannot, doesn't want to. And I'm also starting to wonder if he recognizes what the other team is trying to do. They're afraid of this Eagles offense for good reason. So they're trying to play keep away. Taking chances, even if you give up a big play, allows your offense to go back on the field. Doing what he did last night actually plays into the goal. The last 3 teams, same game plan. Steelers just don't have enough players to do it. Houston doesn't have enough players to do it. Washington, one has slightly better players, but also the Eagles played worse. The plan is to keep the Eagles' offense off the field. Therefore, when they're getting 3 yards a carry and just rolling along slowly, that's their goal. Like if the Eagles are doing it, the Eagles know that's not what the Eagles want to get chunk plays. And they had the ability to get chunk plays when they actually had the ball. Quez Watkins' 40-yard play that he ended up messing up being an example of it. They didn't want chunk plays. They wanted to play keep away. And Gannon let them do it because he's thinking, I'm sure they want to score fast based on what? It's like he didn't understand for the 3rd time in a row what the other team's goal was. Their goal was to score, but score slow enough to keep the Eagles' offense off the field. And he didn't recognize what they were trying to do. He was thinking he was coaching against the Eagles. Washington, they would have taken chunk plays, but they know they can't sustain that. If they start chasing chunk plays, they know that quarterback will make mistakes like he eventually did, and bad things will happen. And just like with the other teams. So the way, and it's going to be the same thing with the Colts. They don't think Matt Ryan's going to be throwing it down the field. The man's arm is made out of aluminum foil. Like he can't get the ball downfield. So their goal is going to be move the ball slow, shorten the game, and Gannon should recognize that and change his approach based on it, but he won't.
No, he won't. No, you're absolutely right, though. That's exactly what, if Ron Rivera was able to see the future and he was told that you would get 8-minute drives, you would see 16-play drives, 14-play drives, and even some of them are field goals. Think about that. You don't win in this league very often with kicking field goals. You got to punch it in. You need to get those 7s. But because of how long that time took and how much came off the clock, they actually benefited from that. Was such a huge piece to this. And with Gannon's message of, hey, let's keep taking it on, It's problematic. How do you not see that?
It's a blueprint.
It's simple, though. The problem is it's too simple to ignore as long as he ignores it for.
You're absolutely right. Let's go back to the phones. Jose in Gilbertsville. You're on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Hi, Jen. Hope everybody's day is good today. I have three issues with the messy loss last night. Mm-hmm. Obviously, everybody's correct. Defense was horrible. Jonathan Gannon needs to make some adjustments. If he doesn't, I feel he needs to be on a bus out of Philly. Needs to be gone. The second issue is the referees. That's just unacceptable that they say refereeing is the hardest job. I have a wife that's a teacher. I drive trucks. We do hard jobs. And the third issue is Fletcher Cox, man. I don't know. He needs to be put on the bench, and something needs to happen with Fletcher Cox. Not happy with him right now.
Well, he's an old man. Like, you can't be mad at him. This is what he
looked
has.
Beat up last night.
I feel there's more in him, though. Don't
Why?
you? I don't know.
Absolutely not.
More than this, like he wasn't even
they
not
cut
even
him last year. Like, we forget that they cut him and brought him back.
A lot of guys slow down, by the way, right around where he is right now.
Yeah, I think he's cooked.
He's like non-existent bad.
They cut him.
I know, but there's strategic stuff
He was
with him.
getting pancaked.
I don't think he has
agree.
a lot
He
left.
was getting pancakes.
I think he's a rotation guy. I think Hargrave has a lot left.
I don't disagree with that.
I don't think he has more
But
left.
within a rotation guy, you would still notice him as I didn't even notice him. If he's a rotation
I noticed him getting pushed down.
You noticed him on the ground. He was on the ground a lot.
I did too. I noticed that. But if you're saying he's a rotation guy, that means there's still something in his game. Well, rotation guys still have a role.
I think it's more that Milton Williams and the young guys haven't stepped up enough. And while we were crowning Howie, I don't necessarily think he did everything he needed to do on the defensive line as far as getting more players to replace Fletcher Cox. I think Fletcher Cox has given all he's got.
And last but not least, Quinn looked like he didn't even play last night.
He's been he's stolen money.
Yeah, I mean, but he looked like he was coming off the field in like sweatpants and a hoodie. You didn't even really see him on the field that much.
Look at his numbers his numbers from Chicago this year. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, I think Quinn played 22 snaps and did absolutely nothing in those 22 snaps. Now, he's a smaller guy, and really what his role's supposed to be is to get a lead, and then when they force the other team into pass downs, he'll rush the passer. But I will say it goes back to how magical that Super Bowl year was, that when they got Chris Long, and how well he was able to bring in leadership into the locker room and still had something left. They've tried it multiple times. How'd that Ryan Kerrigan move work out? And so far, it's only been, 3 games, but so far the Quinn moves looks more Kerrigan-like than Chris Long-like. So far. It just shows you how magical that Chris Long thing was, where every button that Howie pushed that year worked. It seems to be hard to find veteran defensive linemen who have something left.
But if Gannon is dropping back Quinn, and we'll see some things in tape. No, I know. I'm just saying, though, but those are examples of within those snaps. If that's happening, if some of the Josh Sweat we've seen, I mean, that's a correlation between Gannon putting these players in a position to not succeed.
Absolutely.
So it's a combination of both, I guess is my point. Combination of some of these guys being fried, but at the same time, is the DC maximizing what they have left the best way he possibly can?
Although Booty does pull out. Fletcher Cox plays 70 snaps.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah. That tells me, again, that's why I'm not mad at Fletcher Cox. That tells me that Milton Williams and those other defensive linemen, they have not developed enough yet to where you can play him less.
Or did they, but Gannon isn't? I don't know. I'm just asking, can you do more?
Well, have you seen, you personally?
How many snaps did Milton Williams get? Let's look at that. So if he's getting, I don't know, can you reduce 70?
Fletcher Cox plays 70. I'm looking at all defensive tackles.
Okay.
Hargrave plays 66. Milton Williams plays 38 snaps.
Okay. That's still a decent amount. I was going to say, can you get 60 out of Fletch, 48 out of Milton Williams?
And no,
couldn't get him off the field for crying out loud.
But the issue is then, if Fletcher Cox in his current form is still better, then I can't give Milton Williams more snaps. And that's why I think the issue may be that him and Tio Piloto.
Yeah, I got you, yeah.
He played 37 snaps. Those guys have not done enough to supplant him.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I can't deny that. You're absolutely right. Some of these guys that maybe we expected to take a bigger leap at this point in their career, not that they're superstars by any means, but to beat a diminished Fletcher Cox is not something outrageous.
When you look at last year's draft, when everybody was praising it, not to say it was wrong, you know Devontae can play and Dickerson can play.
Yes.
But we haven't seen the step forward from Milton Williams this year, from last year into this year. I don't know if he's any better this year than he was last year.
Fair point.
He doesn't seem to pop. And Gainwell has not taken the step forward from last year to this year as far as the and
if
McPherson.
Anything, he might. I'm less high on Gainwell this year.
Right. And McPherson, maybe he's not getting an opportunity because he does have really good corners in front of him. But it's kind of weird where it seems like the players after the first two, those guys are stud starters. But the rest of the guys in last year's draft doesn't seem like they've come into year two and taken that jump that you would hope that players would do. None of those young guys seem to be popping as far as what I'm saying. Maybe when we talk to E.J. Smith and we talk to Jeff Mosher later on in the show, maybe they'll say otherwise. Maybe they'll say, no, I'm seeing great things. But as far as those guys, I haven't seen that leap. And with Fletcher Cox, 70 snaps is a lot of snaps.
It is.
That's too many.
It's
way too many for him to be in there. I mean, I understand, you know what, he was a monster at times in his career, but you're not in that stage anymore.
Right.
You have to be able to figure out how many snaps he can handle and then switch it up a little bit. And that's on one guy. That's all I'm saying. It's on one guy. It's not on Fletcher Cox.
Meanwhile, he does a great job rotating on the outside. He plays Josh Sweat. Now, he did get hurt, 36. Brandon Graham, 34. He moves all around with his defensive ends. And then, obviously, Quinn less than that. And then he sometimes will use Hassan Reddick played 70% of snaps, but only 58 snaps. So all of the edge rushers played significantly less snaps than both Fletcher Cox and Hargrave. That tells me they don't have as many options with the comfortable options. They feel much more comfortable rotating their ends than feel comfortable rotating their tackles. And that's a personnel issue.
It is, but I also don't trust Gannon. So you're right, though. It is a person, but I also don't trust the guy who's making the decision. So I'm in a weird spot. I'm in a bind because I don't disagree with you. Maybe there isn't anything better you can do personnel, but maybe there is because this guy clearly is lost at times. And Gannon,